Hello everyone and welcome to the inaugural episode of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Warcry on the channel, largely using models for Underworld and also Cursed City just to kind of ease in, try out the game. Don't take this as a how to play or anything like that. This is a learning to play, so also please do be forgiving for anything that's done slightly incorrect. And might over-explain a few things just to help bring in people who might be watching this video to give it a chance that haven't heard of Warcry either and just want to follow along as best they can. It is a pretty simple game. It's played on a 30 by 22 inch board. I believe this is one of the boards that came with the Catacombs box, which was the only box I was able to find. And we're going to give it a go and see how it is, and then gauge how people feel about it going on. Beyond that, it is super simple. We're going to randomize the mission, so I can't really tell you how a team wins yet because we don't know. But it's played over usually 3 or 4 rounds, and each round you roll a bunch of dice, and actually let's just do a test one. This is just for show. This is not going to be round 1 or anything. But at the start of a round you roll your 6 dice and then you pick out any doubles, triples or quads you have, which in this case is 2 6s and 2 1s, and then you have singles. Whoever has the most singles gets priority for the round, but doubles, triples and quads are used for special abilities that you can use on top of 2 actions that each character can do per activation. There's universal ones from the rulebook you can use, and there's also faction-specific ones that kind of play into their playstyle, as it were. You do also get wild dice. You get 1 wild die per turn. So let's just say, for instance, this is the wild die for turn 1. You can choose to bank wild dice to carry on between rounds, but if you use it, you could, for instance, say I want another double, so you could change it to a 4. That becomes a double. You would lose priority if the other player had more than 1 single. Or you could make something into a triple if you wanted a triple 1. Sometimes the value on the dice matters, sometimes it doesn't. Having the triple is sometimes more important. But that's really it. That's it. And other than that, it's just you can move, you can attack at range, you can attack at close combat. It really comes down to the randomization of the mission, which is what we're going to go to after taking a look at both sides. So a game of Warcry is usually played with 1,000 points on the dot. We don't quite have that. So the Soulblight Gravelords, which we'll look at in a second, has brought its points down to 910, and the Maggotkin of Nurgle, which is what they're called these days, the Rotbringers, Maggotkin of Nurgle, they are running at 905 points, so there's a 5-point difference. Neither of them are quite at the cap. There was a couple of zombies in the Soulblight Gravelord list, but to bring them down to make it an even fight, they've dropped those so that they're at 910 as opposed to 905. Also, if you know your Nurgle models, you'll know that this is a Lord of Plagues. However, for the purposes of this battle report, he's just counting as a Blight King with a blighted weapon, just as a normal standard guy. You can have 1 to 3 heroes. One of them is your leader. The leader for this list is the Harbinger of Decay here at the back. Big guy on a horse. Fantastic model. Incidentally, I really like that model. Then from Warhammer Underworlds, we have Fecula Flyblown and her 2 bodyguards. So we have Guluk the Butcher over here, and what's his name? Sepsimus, yes. Sepsimus Plaguesworn over here, and then we have just a sorcerer there. His proper title is a Rotbringer sorcerer. He's actually exceptionally similar to Fecula. She's worth slightly more points. She's from Warhammer Underworlds. She's got slightly more wounds. And speaking of that, just to quickly go over stats, again, it is actually very basic. Each model has a move characteristic. The Nurgle people are really slow, as in 3 inches slow. They've got a toughness stat, and they have a number of wounds. For instance, Fecula is toughness 4 and 28 wounds. They have 1 or more weapons, so the sorcerer and Fecula have a ranged magic attack, but they also have an up-close bonk on the head with a staff attack. It comes down to attacks, which is how many dice you roll if you're doing an attack, the strength of the attack, which is almost universally 4 across the board, I think, for the Nurgle side here, and then how much damage it does for a normal hit and how much damage it does for a crit. So it's just super simple. If your strength of the attack is equal to the toughness of the person you're hitting, you need 4 pluses. If it's weaker, you need 5 pluses. If it's stronger, you need 3 pluses, and in every instance a 6 is a crit, which I think without exception always does more damage on an attack. Very basic. We'll cover this more in detail as attacks actually happen during the fight, but just getting that out of the way there. And I think that's about it. There's no additional war gear or anything like that. So we'll go take a look at the vampires. So with only one exception, which is the Vampire Lord, who is the leader today and also the only hero on this side. He was purchased separately. Everything else is from Warhammer Curse City. We have 2 Korsagi Night Guard, which are the big guys at the back. They're very, very tough. And then we just have 3 Virkos Bloodborne, who are very, very fast. Not as many weapon selections. Basically, just those 3 brothers slash sisters have a weapon. The Vampire Lord has his own unique weapon. It's a spirit-possessed blade, even though he's modelled with a mace. And the Korsagi have a Bardiche. And as I say, they're very tough. In particular, the Night Guards have 30 wounds, their toughness 4. They only move 4, so they're as slow as the Nurgles. But they do 5 damage on crits and 2 damage on normal, and they're hitting at strength 5, so it's very hard to resist their attacks. But that's about it for them, and as I say, there was originally a couple of zombies in this list which brought them to 990, but dropped those just to make it fair points-wise. So we do have the second edition of Warcry rulebook, but we're actually generating the mission from the original version of the rulebook just because it better fits the terrain and scenery we're using here. Part of the setup is also going to involve splitting both sides into 3 as equal as possible size groups called the dagger, the shield and the hammer. That is relevant for where and when each deploys. For instance, let's see here, some of them, in this one, if you've got knife to the back down at the bottom here, whoever you have in your dagger doesn't come in until the 3rd game turn. So that kind of thing matters. So we're just going to randomise. The only thing we're not randomising is how the train is set up, because we don't have the train used in this book. So you can just set up your own if you want. So we're going to roll 1 to 3, we're taking this page, 4 to 6, we're taking this page, and then it's another dice roll for what we're doing. So let's just see. That means we're taking deployment card type B, and it's going to be refused flank, i.e. over here. So the hammers and the daggers set up on the board for the red side actually, and then for the blue side their dagger doesn't come on until round 2. So refused flank, and then we need to know how we're actually winning here. So same again, 1 to 3 is the left page. Okay, we're on this page, and that's a 6. Yep, so we're doing raise. Starting with the player who won priority, each player picks a different battlefield edge to be their warband's territory. Any fighter that finishes a move action within 1 of an enemy warband's territory can enter it. Remove the fighter from the battlefield. Do not count them as being taken down, i.e. killed. The battle ends after 4 battle rounds. When the battle ends, count the number of fighters that entered an enemy warband's territory. The player with the most wins. So it's basically just get across the board. That does not bode well for people as slow as Nurgle, but I guess the vampires have also got some slow people as well. So we'll get that set up once we decide on how each side is splitting their dagger, hammer and shield. The Rotbringers won the roll-off and has decided to be the red player in the protected flank, or refused flank, sorry, deployment type we got, and here's how they have split themselves apart. So Fecula and the subbed-in Blight King are going to be the dagger, the Harbinger and Gulok, or Gulgok, are the shield, and the Rotbringer Sorcerer and Sepsimus are the hammer. And here's how the Soulblight Gravelords have split themselves apart. So remember, as per the refused flank, their dagger, I think it is, or hammer, either one of the 2 is not coming on until the 2nd round. So on the 1st round, they're just not going to be on the table at all. The shield is going to be the 2 Korsagi Night Guard. The Vampire Lord and one of the Vikos Bloodborne are going to be the dagger. And then that leaves the hammer for the other 2 Vikos Bloodborne. Simple as that. And so both sides are finally set up. I apologise for taking so long going over everything, but again, just trying to introduce the series slowly. So the 2 Vikos Bloodborns are off the table because they don't come in until round 2. They'll be coming in on the left of your screens, up around here. For now though, we have the Vampire Lord and the other Bloodborne down here, and the 2 Korsagi Night Guard here. So as per the raise objective that we got, each side, starting with who has priority, picks a battlefield edge to be their territory, and that's where the enemy models want to get within 1 of. The Rotbringers have picked the far end of the table, and the Vampires have picked this end of the table down here. Still very easy for some of them to actually make it there because it isn't a super huge playing area. So that's it. All we need to do now is roll the dice to see who has football attacks. I guess technically you're supposed to roll your dice first and then go by priority. We went by priority of who picked red or blue. With hindsight, maybe it was supposed to be who won priority in the round. But either way, it's now down to what each side has for dice for the turn. And here's how the dice ended up. The Rotbringers have a double 5, a double 6, 2 singles, and they're opting to bank their extra die. It carries across between turns, so they'll have 2 to potentially use in round 2's dice roll. For the Soulblight Gravelords, they just got a single double and then 4 singles. They're using their extra power die to make that 6 a double, which still gives them 3 singles, so they have priority first activation. And with that, let's get this battle started. First activation for the Soulblight Gravelords was one of the Kursagi Night Guard, and I think I mentioned it at the top of the video, but when someone activates, they can do 2 actions: move, disengage, attack, wait. They can also react if they still have an action out of their own turn if they get attacked. But for now, and also being slow, only moving up to 4 inches, this Kursagi Night Guard opted to move and then kind of move another inch for his second action, just to get behind that cover there and to stay out of the threat radius of Gulgok, who's just off to the right there, because he's also very, very slow and shouldn't be able to reach him. Although I think you have to just be within 1. You don't have to be base to base to be classes in combat. A disengage is how you have to get out of close combat, just for the record, and that's just the you've activated sign. The other side is if you do a wait, which means you've wasted one of your actions, but you can still activate again later on in the turn to do your other action. Well, he might have been safe from Gulgok the Butcher, but he was not safe from the Harbinger. On his horse he moved 6 inches, which for anything Nurgle related counts as fast. So he actually did have enough distance to get in there as his first action. He moved 6, got in close enough to count as being in hand-to-hand combat or close combat. And then he spent the double 6 that they had on Virulent Discharge. You pick an enemy fighter visible to this fighter within 1 inch. You roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. It was double 6s, so you roll 6. And then for each 4+, allocate 1 point of damage. He managed to do 2. Not great in the grand scheme of things, but it's a free action using up some of those action dice. Then for his other actual action, he attacked with his Decaying Scythe, I believe it is. Range 2, so he doesn't actually even need to be in point blank. 4 attack dice at strength 4, going up against the toughness 4 rather, of the Kursagi Night Guard. And he did well with that. He got 2 normal wounds through for 2 damage each, and 1 crit for 4, because he rolled a 6. Altogether, including the 2 damage from Virulent Discharge, he did 10, which is a third of the health of the Kursagi Night Guard. They've got 30 wounds, so got to chip away at them. The other Night Guard activated next to the Soulblight Gravelords, they don't have any of the rune marks, which I haven't really talked about, but on each person's stat card they have certain rune marks that gives them access to certain double and triple abilities for the faction. They didn't have anything they wanted to make use of, so he just moved up and then he attacked with that Bardish. I might be mispronouncing the weapon name, but either way, it's only 2 attack dice, but it's strength 5, so he was beating the strength of the Harbinger. He got 1 normal hit through and 1 crit. The normal hit did 2 wounds, and the crit did a massive 5, so that is 7 already to the Harbinger, who I think has 28 wounds, something similar to that. So hurt him a little bit. Next activation for the Rotbringers was the stand-in Blight King, the Putrid Blight King, who moves a mighty 3 inches, so he used both his actions to move a total of 6, getting up to the corner there on the right of your screen and not doing anything else. The Vampire Lord activated and spent the double 4 that the Soulblight Gravelords had on a universal ability. I think it's called Rush. It just adds 1 inch to his movement action, because that put him within 1 inch of the Lord of Plagues. It's a stand-in for a Blight King, meaning that he could swing at him with his Spirit Possessed Blade, 4 dice, attack strength 4, and he was toughness 4, so he needed 4 pluses to do any wounds. He got 3 wounds through, which is just normal wounds though, but that is a pretty powerful weapon. It does 2 wounds on a normal hit and 6, I think, on a crit, so it's just as well he didn't get a crit. But he did still manage to get 3 hits though, so that's 6 wounds in total of the... Ooh, how many does that Blight King have? Blight Kings have 25, so he's got 19 left. Fecula activated for the Rotbringers next, moving up in a very fast 3 inches, and then she had to use her spell attack, her Arcane Bolt I believe it's called. It does have a minimum range, the target has to be outside of 3 inches, which the Vampire Lord was just. And it's only 2 dice at strength 3, and the Vampire Lord is a massive toughness 5, so she needed 5s and 6s. She got a 2 and a 6, but that meant that the crit got through for, if you just back out a little bit more, 6 wounds on the Vampire Lord. How many wounds does a Vampire Lord have? Because I bet it's a lot. A Vampire Lord has 25 wounds. The Kursagi Night Guard have more actually. Okay, so he's got 19 left as well then. Well, we got to see vampiric speed at work here as the Varicose Bloodborne, which is actually the last activation for the Soulblight Gravelord this turn, since they have 2 not on the table yet. He spent their other double. It was a double 6, but the value of the double doesn't matter. He took Rush again to get +1 to his movement, and his normal movement is 8 inches, so his movement actions became 9 inches, meaning he could move 18, and he sped up the table, all the way up the table, to more than within an inch of the battlefield edge selected as the Rotbringers territory, so he is opting to go into it, which is how they're going to win. So although he's not going to do anything fight-wise, he is now a scoring model that's off the table for the rest of the game, and technically makes him 1-0 as we go to the final 2 or 3 activations for the Rotbringers. Well, not to be outdone by that, Golgok the Butcher activated and spent the other double that the Nurgle side was sitting on to also add +1 to his movement, meaning he was moving 4 per action, and 8 inches got him to the battlefield edge that was selected by the vampire, so he's also opting to get off of the boards. We're not going to get to see him fight this game, but he is now a scoring unit. He's off into the vampires' territory to lick their wallpaper and sniff their sheets. So keeping in mind that at the top of round 2, 2 more Vicus Bloodborne are entering the table right here, or rather within 3 inches of right here. He is positioning himself so he's blocking terrain. I believe it's a case of you can pass through friendlies but you can't pass through enemies in terms of movement. You can't climb over stuff though. But either way, he's just going to stand there and await them the next turn and try and fight them off. Final activation of the first round was the Rotbringer Sorcerer, who moved up a mighty 3 inches and did an Arcane Bolt, exactly the same as Feculus, onto the Vampire Lord. He didn't get any crits, he got 1 normal wound through for an additional 3 wounds on the Vampire Lord, so he's up to 9 now. And that is it for the first round of our very first game of Warcry ever on the channel, and in general for that matter. We're going to move into the second round. There isn't really any kind of like end of round wrap up. You remove the activated tokens, obviously. Keep the wound tokens on there so we know who's wounded by how much. I think that helps follow along at home. It's technically 1-1 because both sides have had one person invade the territory of the other. We do have to roll the dice again to see who has priority, and those other 2 Vicus Bloodborne are coming in at the point talked about as well for the top of round 2. Forgot to mention at the top of the video though, but this series, well, this video and this series in general, the videos are going to go live for channel members as soon as they're uploaded and rendered and HD quality available. For everyone else, it'll be put into the schedule as normal. It's making use of a new feature that YouTube's added. If you want to see the videos as soon as they're up, please do consider becoming a channel member. If not, that's okay. I understand times are tough. You'll still get to see the video as part of the normal schedule, usually about a week after it's filmed. So as the second round starts, here's how the dice rolls have panned out. In the opening roll, the Rotbringers just had a double 2 and then 4 singles. They've opted to use both their extra dice though to turn that double into a triple and to turn a single into a double. That still gives them 3 for priority. The vampires got a triple 2 and a double 1 and a single, and they've opted to use their 1 extra die to turn that double into a triple. It's 1s, but still, because they knew they weren't getting priority anyway, so they're sitting on 2 triples, and it will be the Rotbringers going first in round 2. Round 2 got started with the Harbinger of Decay spending that triple on Stream of Corruption on the Kersagi Night Guard he'd already wounded. You roll 3 dice for each, 4+ I believe it is, or maybe 5+. You deal 1 wound and also lower his toughness by 1 to a minimum of 1 until the end of the round. He did a single wound there, but I did put him at toughness 3, which means he was only needing 4+ to deal damage with his scythe. He attacked twice with it. First one managed to do just normal hits, 3 of them, to do 6 damage in total. Second one did 1 normal hit and a crit for a total of 6 more. We'll consolidate this damage together now, but that's him at what, 11, 17, that's him at 23. He has 7 wounds left. Well, it is a little bit cheesy, but as I understand it, this kind of stuff happens in Warcry. It just depends how you randomise the mission. One of those 2 Vicus Bloodborne that entered the table before Septimus gets a chance to engage them, meaning they would have to do disengage actions, which I think only gives you 2 or 3 inches of movement. He is just skedaddling up the edge of a table here, reaching their battlefield edge and saying, "I'm going into your territory," to be a scoring unit. So Septimus activated, moved up 3 inches. He's got range 2 on his blighted weapon because it's a long spear. With hindsight though, he probably should have just double moved because you don't count as being engaged in close combat unless you're within 1 of the target. So he's not having to do a disengage. Although honestly, even if he did a disengage, well, yeah, if he had to do a disengage it has to be away. So yeah, I would have stopped him, but as it is, he will just be able to run off the table if he wants to, up at the battlefield edge. So the double was spent, the double 5 on Virulent Discharge, so Septimus puked on him, 5 dice, and managed to do 3 wounds with that. And then he attacked with his Blighted Weapon, which again is a spear special. It's got range 2. It does really rubbish base damage, it only does 1, but if he gets a crit, it does 5. Unfortunately, he only got a normal hit, so in total he did 4 wounds and used up their last double for the turn. And well, why wouldn't you if you're not engaged? This Vico's Bloodborne is zooming off the table up here. We're not going to get to see them do anything in combat, because that is all 3 of them off to safety now. For the record, they had like 15 wounds. They would have been the easiest to kill on the table. Only toughness 3 as well. Their bonus point is definitely their super fast speed, which they have used to good effect in the mission type we ran them. So yeah, he's off the board as a scoring unit. Our Lord of Plagues stand in for a Blight King with Blighted Weapon activated. He's within 1 inch of the Vampire Lord, so all he did was take 2 swings at him, and we'll consolidate this in a second. But his first hit managed to get 1 wound and 1 crit through for a total of 6, I believe it is. Well, he definitely did 6, but I forget how the damage is split. I think it's 2 for a standard, 4 for a crit. Yeah. And then his second one, though, that managed to do 2 crits for a total of 8, which is just out of line of sight. Apologies, there we go. He did 8. So all in all, that would be, let's see, 12, 15, 20, 23. And I think he's only got 25 wounds, doesn't he? So that's 2 wounds left. Yeah, the Vampire Lord only has 2 wounds left, and he'd has to do a disengage action if he wants to get out of the way. And I'm not sure what other options he has, because he's gonna die. The Vampire Lord activated and did indeed do a disengage as his first action. You have to move 3 inches on the level you're on, so you can't climb or anything during it. You can go in any direction, but it has to end more than 1 inch away from any enemies. So he did come back this way a little bit, and then he just did a normal move action, which is 5 inches for him. He moved up to the base here and then climbed, and you just measure vertically. He ended up here. Not safe, considering there's 2 sorcerers on the enemy team that have 7-inch range in total, so he could still very much die. And if he does, that's a problem, because if both sides just rush to each other's territory, which the vampires kind of have done, that means it will be a draw, because both sides started with the same number of people. One side has to lose at least 1 person for it to be kind of like the tiebreaker, or the thing that breaks the tie. Vicula inched her way up the table, doing a movement action for 3 inches, and then tried to use that arcane bolt on the Vampire Lord to finish him off. He's in cover based on where she's looking at him from, at least as far as we could tell, but that doesn't really matter. It's just +1 to his toughness, and he's already toughness 5, so she was already only wounding on 5s and 6s, and she didn't get any this time, so no wounds. Next up for the Soulblight Gravelords was the Night Guard in base-to-base contact, more or less, with the Harbinger of Decay, just opting to swing that brioche bun of his at him twice, only rolling 2 attack dice but needing 3 pluses because it's strength 5 versus toughness 4. Got 1 hit through on his first attempt just for a base 2 damage, and did the same on his next one for a total of 4 extra damage. Again, we'll consolidate between takes, but not great. He was looking for the crits there to try and get the Harbinger closer to death. Bit of a whiff. Last activation of the second round for Nurgle was the Rotbringer Sorcerer, who moved twice for a total of 6 inches to get his slow moving body right there, leaking all over the place as he goes, I'm sure. We're already at the last activation entirely for round 2. It was the other Kursagi Night Guard, and he considered moving and then attacking the Harbinger once, just to try and get away from everybody over on the left. He opted instead just to strike twice. He's got range 2, so he could reach from where he was, and he's glad he did, because he rolled really well. Both dice in the first attack were crits, meaning he did 10. The second attack was 2 successes, one of which was a crit, so that was 2 for the normal wound and 5 more damage for the other crit. That means that was 15, 16, 17 more damage on top of the 11 he already had. He only has 25 wounds, so unfortunately for the awesome looking Harbinger of Decay, he is out of there. I'll be talking about him in the next Getting Stuff Painted though, if you're curious. But for now though, he is very much deceased, so that could be the point swing right there, even though the numbers advantage is still in the Rotbringers' favour. So at the end of the second round, the Soulblight Gravelords have 3 in Nurgle's territory to just 1 from the Rotbringers, so 3 plays 1 technically for the victory conditions, although on the table the Rotbringers do still have the advantage, 4 models to 3, and that Vampire Lord is so close to getting killed, but if he doesn't go down, he'll be a problem. We're going into round 3. This game lasts 4 rounds unless there's a stop condition sooner. So on to the dice rolls. And here's how the dice shook up at the top of round 3. Nurgle's team started with just a double 6 and 4 singles, which they have used to make another double here. And for the Soulblight Gravelords, they have made a triple 5. They had a double and a double to start with, so they're giving up first activation. It's a bit of a gamble because if the Vampire Lord goes down, there's nothing to take advantage of these beyond doing like the Universal Rush or whatever. He's the only one who can do the Vampire unique ones because the Kursagi Night Guard don't have access to any of that. So it's a bit of a gamble. They're giving up priority. We'll see if it pays off or not. Well, let's find out. So as we start round 3, not sure if we added up incorrectly or just didn't notice that the Vampire Lord has 25 wounds, which is how many he has, so that would mean he's actually dead. Don't remember if that was a miscount or not, so we're going to count that he has 1 wound remaining, and just in case that wild die is not being spent, so they've actually just got 2 doubles, because then at least if he does go down, the Kursagi Night Guard can make use of them for rushes, etc. Just in case, not 100% sure if that was correct or not, so that's the way we're going to play. Obviously via the power of editing and watching back, you'll know for sure, but we're not sure so at the time of recording, so that's how we're going to choose to play it, and that shouldn't be there either for that matter. We'll be back in a second because Fecula is immediately going to try and kill him. Well, it took both actions to roll a 5 or a 6 on 2 dice twice, but she did actually manage it, which does, I think it's 2 damage base anyway, so hopefully we weren't off by more than that. Either way, if he was supposed to be dead, then that means she shouldn't have wasted her activation doing that, and that would be a mistake. Apologies if it was, but that's what she's done. So the Vampire Lord is gone now, and that means it's kind of on par. Both sides have lost their leader now. The heavily wounded Kursagi Night Guard activated, used the double to get +1 to his movements for the turn, giving him a total of 10 inches across 2 actions, which he used to come round the corner and move up here to try and run away. I'm not sure if anyone will catch him because of how slow Nurgle is. I guess we'll see. Well, it took both actions and also using a double to get +1 movement on each of those actions, but the Blight King made it over within an inch of the Kursagi Night Guard, meaning he'll have to do a disengage or a stand and fight, so it at least kind of ties them up a little bit and might deny them getting off the board. And using up the double 3 that was left over for the Soulblight Gravelords, the other Kursagi Night Guard, +1 to his movement, scarpered up the table 10 inches in total as well across 2 actions. I kind of like that thematically though. It's like both leaders are dead, so both sides are now just running for it. It doesn't make for a very visually appealing battle because there's not going to be much more fighting now, but thematically it works. So there's only 2 activations left for the Rotbringers, and we can cover both of those now. Septimus used up that double 6, a bit of a waste, but either way, on +1 movement to get himself right there with 2 movement actions. The Rotbringer Sorcerer just did 2 3-inch moves. It got him within an inch, so he is waddling off into Soulblight territory and counts as a scoring unit. It doesn't make it even though, it's still 3-2 to the Soulblight Gravelords. So I think most battles in Warcry goes 3 rounds. This is one of those rare situations where there is going to be a 4th round. It is mostly going to be movement, but we do have to cover it. There is still a chance that the Rotbringers will be able to take this back. If that Kursagi Night Guard that is wounded goes down, that should swing it for them, depending. We'll see, because there is only 1 round left, and because of where the Blight King put himself, he can't get off the table from where he is. So he's going to be stuck there. Depending on how many doubles they have, both Kursagi Night Guard might not get off the table either. It's really going to come down to the dice rolls. And here's the results of those all-important dice rolls. Originally, the Rotbringers only had a double 5 and 4 singles. They have used their final wild die though to make that 6 into a double. The Soulblight Gravelords had 3 doubles. So they've just got their 1 wild die basically sitting there doing nothing because they can't, well, they could make a triple, but there's no point because the Night Guard have no use for a triple. I mean, there might be a universal triple I guess they could use. So sure, they could make a triple 5, but either way, they'll mostly just be running. And priority does go to the Rotbringers. So round 4 came down to what this Blight King up here is doing. He spent the double 6 on Virulent Discharge, managed to do 3 wounds to the Kursagi Night Guard that was within an inch of where he was. Then for his first actual action, he swung that Blighted Weapon and managed to get 2 normal hits through for 2 damage each, for 4 more damage, taking him to the 30 and removing that Kursagi Night Guard from the table. For his other action, he just moved his 3 inches to block the way, because it might be hard for him to get past now. I'll need to double check actually whether or not that's allowed. Like, if you move within one of an enemy, are you considered to be engaged, or is it only if you swing a weapon at them? Because that matters, because it really comes down to that. Because the Korsagi Night Guard can't finish him off in one round of attacks, or two actions of attacks. Oh, or he'd only have one because he's too far away. So I don't think he's getting off the table if that's the case, and that's the important part, because Fecula and Septimus, they can just walk off. So it really does just come down to, can he get off the table? Because if he can, then at best they can hope for a draw. If he can't, then it's going to be a win for the Rotbringers. Oh, it seems like that placement has cost the Soulblight Gravelords the game. There is not enough room to fit his base round the scenery here, meaning he has to go past. Now, he can do a normal movement action. He can spend a double to get 5 inches. 5 inches does not put him beyond 1 inch of the Lord of Plague / Blight King Warrior. So that would mean if he starts a movement action within 1 inch of an enemy, he has to do a disengage, which is only 3. So the 5 would get him roughly there, and 3 would not get him within 1 of that edge there, and there is no way to make it work measurement wise. So no matter what he does, even if he did maximum wounds, which would be 10 on the one attack he'd be able to do after moving in, wouldn't be able to kill him. So nothing changes up there, and that is going to cost them the game. So just to wrap things up officially here, Septimus just needs to do 2 Bogsander moves and he's within an inch of the table edge, so he can get off the table. Fecula has to use the other double they had, the double 5, to get 4 inches of movement per action, so she can move 8 in total, but that does mean she makes it within an inch down here. We just pan down ever so slightly. She is within an inch of the edge, barely, like just barely, but that does mean she can choose to leave, so that does give them the game. If we just go look over here, the people that made it off the table for the Rotbringers were these 4. Gulog didn't even get to attack, and it was the 4 Vicus Bloodborne that got off, or sorry, the 3 rather, that got off the board for the Soulblight Gravelords, meaning that as per the rules for the Raise mission, I believe it was called, R-E-Z-E, the Rotbringers take it. So that is going to do it for the inaugural game of Warcry on the channel, one of many to come I hope, so apologies for anything that was done incorrectly. It's literally the first time I've played the game, so please be gentle and support it if you want to see more. And going ahead, it will follow that release schedule where our channel members will get to see it early, but everyone will be able to get to see it early. Will be able to get to see it rather about a week after it's filmed. Usually less than that. It's usually 4 or 5 days, but you know. So please do support us if you want to see it. We'll get some more warbands painted up for some Warcry specific ones, not just Underworld stuff. Although I am quite interested how the Headsman's Curse would do in this, and also Skabek's Plague Pack. I think that'd be quite fun. But either way, hopefully most things done correctly. It all comes down to the randomised mission you get, I suppose, whether or not a team has a distinct disadvantage. I thought Nurgle was gonna, because they move slow and it was about running across the board, but the board itself isn't that big. So even for them, it wasn't too bad. Now, if we were playing a full 1,000-point game, the Vampires would have had a numbers advantage. They would have had a couple of extra bodies to just 1 for the Nurgle team. Granted, the 1 for the Nurgle team would have been tougher, but that might have swung it in their favour if we were playing the full proper 1,000 points. So just keep that in mind as well. Thank you for watching though, do let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time. Ta-ta for now.